Andrew and John DeWys of DeWys Metal Solutions.
Over time, we're like, well, we're just not a manufacturer. We do a lot more. We started looking outside of our four walls. And so over the last probably 10 to 15 years, we've really rebranded ourselves and really expanded ourselves horizontally as well as vertically.
I think it's also gotten to a size, I think, where we've noticed as we've started to, move different processes and companies out or acquire it, what we've noticed is as you get to a certain size, it becomes like you kind of want to stop, right? So you can still manage it effectively.
This episode is sponsored by Fulcrum. Most fab shops are running on too few people, too many spreadsheets, and not enough hours in the day. Fulcrum fixes that. It's a platform built for fabrication that uses AI to automate the workflows eating up your team's time. Scheduling, tracking, quoting, quality, so your people can focus on getting parts out the door. See what it looks like at fulcrumpro.com. And now, back to the episode.
Hello, welcome to the Fabricator Podcast. My name is Dan Davis of the Fabricator Magazine.
And I'm Lincoln Bruner with Tube and Pipe Journal and the Fabricator.
And we're here in Clearwater Beach, Florida on vacation. No, that's not true. We're here at the FMA annual meeting. Today's guests are John DeWys and Andrew DeWys of DeWys Metal Solutions out of West Michigan. Is it Western Michigan or West Michigan? Western Michigan's the university, so we'll just say West Michigan. We have a great conversation with them. They are longtime members of FMA. We talk a little bit about that, and they won the Fabricator Industry Award back in 2014, which at one time wasn't that long ago.
Very long time ago now.
So just interesting to learn how their organization has changed from those days. When I visited and wrote the story, they were, I would just consider a typical mid-sized shop.
Yeah.
They had done a lot in terms of material organization, setting up all these racks, not necessarily attached to their lasers. They had the beginnings of their in-house training efforts they called DeWys University. Both aspects of that era of the company still exist today, and continue to kind of work on things to not only differentiate themselves, but kind of create space for their employees to move and grow.
Yeah, they seem to value that a lot. They seem to value the opportunities for people to go, multiple different directions within the company. And it's kind of illustrated by the amount of work that's shared between DeWys and ReFab, one of their top performing division, if you will. But they've got, they seem to have a really good take on how to make the most of the people they have and the technology that they're using.
Yeah, great example of good folks trying to do good things for the people that work for them.
Yeah.
They are, just to plug, the Fab 40 coming up in the June issue of the Fabricator. Our colleague Tim Hessen does a good job kind of working with that, and a nice reflection of what's happening out there in the metal fabricating market. And John has some actually interesting observations about that toward the end of this podcast, so that's a teaser to stick around.
Yeah.
Also, you get to see one of my famous send-offs where I can close out a podcast like a professional. So, thanks for joining us for this episode. And if you'd like to send us a message, send it to podcast@fmamfg.org or gslager, that's SLEGER, at fmamfg.org. And Gareth will personally reply, probably send you a t-shirt and a button. Thank you.
What's next for metal fabrication? Tim Heston here, host of the Next Gen Metal Fab podcast. I talk with forward-thinking fabrication shop owners about the ideas, strategies, and technology shaping the future of the business. We explore how leaders are innovating, what's driving change, and what it takes to stay ahead in a fast-moving industry. If you're curious about the future of fabrication and want actionable insights for your shop, hit follow on the Next Gen Metal Fab podcast.
Welcome back to the Fabricator Podcast. Thanks for joining us today here in Clearwater Beach, Florida. Speaking with Andrew and John DeWys of DeWys Metal Solutions. I understood that. That's the kind of a umbrella brand, company name over the family company. We honored DeWys back in 2014, which I'm surprised it's been 12 years.
My hair has changed a little.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. I remember when that wasn't so long ago, but now I can do math. And it's interesting to kind of see where DeWys is now compared to then. So John, a longtime member of FMA as well, can kind of catch us up to where DeWys Metal Solutions is and what parts of the organization make up the whole.
Yeah, well, first of all, we've, like every company, every year you're trying, or not every year, just re-looking at your business and who we are, what we do, look at your customer base, what are you trying to become, where you are today, what are you trying to become? And I think over the last several years, we were always considered DeWys Manufacturing. We were that core. That's when we made the top, or the Fab 40 in 2014. We were DeWys Manufacturing, and actually we're still in the top Fab 40. It was just when we got Fabricator of the Year in 2014. It was just DeWys Manufacturing, and then really since then, over time, we're like, well, we're just not a manufacturer. We do a lot more. We besides powder coating and some of the assembly that a lot of companies do, we started looking outside of our four walls. And so as time progressed, we looked at different opportunities. And so over the last probably 10 to 15 years, we've really rebranded ourselves and really expanded ourselves horizontally as well as vertically. And we purchased we always wanted, every job shop, contract manufacturer wants their own product line.
Right.
It sounds all great, but you got to market it, you got to sell it. Who's going to sell it, warranty it, install it, whatever. And so a few years ago, just before COVID, we bought a grower rack company, a company. It's called American Grower Resource, and it's a company that makes flower displays that show up at Home Depot, Menards. Wow. And it was kind of cool because every year, we still do those. We probably do 1,500 to 2,000 of those a year, but for the past several years, we were always competing with Southeast Asia. And so it was always, we bought the company and then we start having all these issues. But really, more recently, I think we really differentiate ourselves because the products coming from China were always silver colored,
Right.
So when you go there. But now we introduced doing powder coating. Now we can do them in different colors now. And so all the different growers, so we really taken a standard plain product that came overseas, and now we spiced it up. And so now, for example, in this case, the Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, they like our racks for their flowers displays because they pop.
Right.
And so anyway, but then since then we bought ReFab. They were actually a supplier of us at one time. And the guy who was 35 years old, he wanted to retire. 35 years old and wanted to retire. I'm
Man,
like, okay.
I was thinking about that as well.
I'm like,
Wow.
what? But anyway, so we end up buying them. And Andrew, I remember having a phone call with Andrew. I was somewhere and I was remembered in my car, and he says, and Andrew's been working at DeWys Manufacturing for probably how many years before you kind of knocked on the door and you said, you're buying that division, I want to go run it.
Yeah, over 15 years.
Over 15 years.
Has it been 15 years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So we purchased that company, and so Andrew's, we're the main DeWys Manufacturing. Our core plant is where the majority of the team members are, and then Andrew has about how many employees?
Just under 40.
Under
between
40.
our fab shop and our paint line out in Grand Haven, Michigan.
And then we have another son. We've also introduced. He came from the office furniture space. He cut his teeth in product development at Herman Miller, and now we have Wyze Designs, and so that business is taking off. That's back to that products company. He's a products guy coming from office furniture, so he's actually working with some major healthcare institutions on developing some products for them, and so that's exciting. So we're kind of getting back in that product space, and then our daughter, she's in marketing. She's doing very well. She's that next generation. What does marketing look like tomorrow? And so But yeah, so that's a little history. Next year we'll be in our 50th year.
Right.
Congratulations.
2027.
Nice
I
preview.
can't even say 2027. It seems like it's so too far ahead, you know.
We'll make it through this year.
It's
if it
like
kills
10.
us.
It's 10 months away, you know. And so yeah, we'll be at our 50th year. I didn't start the company. I had an older brother, Mark, that started the company. I came on board, was drafted by him immediately out of college, and then unfortunately, probably about 30 years ago, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So late '99, he diagnosed with a brain tumor. 38 years old, passed away a year later, and then boom, John. I didn't even know this. He says, John, well, you're going to run the company if something ever happened to me. I'm like, oh, nothing's going to happen to you.
Right.
You know, he put me in, you know, in certain responsibilities, and it happened to end up buying the company from his family's estate, and the company was running and working and everything. It was, you know, and it's like, okay, John, here's an opportunity. So I was kind of thrown into that, but really 25 years later, we're here, you know, and so I'm very blessed and fortunate for that. And the company continues to grow. I like to consider ourselves a professionally ran, family-owned business because family's great. We need solid family, which is the culture, the values, but we also need the professionals that have those skill sets, not just for today, but for tomorrow. So that's a little recap. That's my
good.
sizzle
And
reel.
I would just
Sizzle
add-
reel.
So you know all the words. You should be hosting this. You're in Western Michigan. I
Yes.
think for me that's always a part of the thing I connect with your company, being that I consider that one of the hubs for metal manufacturing, sheet metal fab, if you will, and particularly with the legacy of manufacturing there, particularly office furniture.
A lot of wood. Wood is huge, obviously.
Yeah, and if you do, you know, if you have any knowledge of manufacturing about U.S., I mean, there's such a legacy of really high-profile companies like Steelcase. You mentioned Herman Miller, and how that's influenced the way you create your work environment. And can you comment on that? I mean, and more specifically, I was even thinking about the recent expansion that your office has done, where you walk in there, it feels like I don't want to call it Fortune 500, but it's not just often, you know, just run-of-the-mill office partitions and tile floor and bad lighting. It's none
From
of
your
that.
great-grandfather that built the shop, 20 years ago. And it's still the same toilets there. Yeah.
The calendar from like 2020 and
Yeah.
Same lights.
Yeah, same lights. It's like, is that a light or is that full of flies? Yeah, and that was huge, Dan. That was huge. We've always had that, and you've expressed it in a lot of your articles that, manufacturing and, not a lot of people go into it and stuff. And we're also dealing with Fortune 500 companies too. And,
Right.
So I think to me, image is super important. The grass, and Andrew, we joke about it internally, and they call me like this guy that's like looking at all the details. I'm one of these people. If you take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. And people like to know that you're taking like quality. It's kind of like quality, but the quality of your workspace. And so about 2 years ago, we made the decision to expand our offices. And there's some ugly designs that came out. Everything's that square building that you put on the front of a factory, and they're ugly, and it's you can get them done cheap. And we said, no, we want a place that encourages people to come, to encourage collaboration. And and again, we're in the West Michigan, being office furniture space. So 30% of our business is office furniture related, and so we also wanted to be like a little showcase as well for our customers. They still made us buy the furniture. I was hoping to get it donated, but anyway, so we built, and then if you look at, I think it was recently FMA promoted that little sizzle reel with our builder,
right,
and then our company, and we wanted the design more than just a square. So our son, the son that came from Herman Miller, he was into Frank Lloyd Wright kind of design. So if you go to see the article there, you can see the structures and the slants and the tall windows and the vertical is
Prairie school type of design.
yeah, very prairie, prairie style. Yes, even the grasses are prairie style, and so it was a little more money, but the family subsidized. Our family subsidized the lease because I'm like, I want a space that has a story. That space does matter. That was kind of my theme of that. That people want to come to a space that fosters innovation and creativity. Even in a fab shop, we wanted something that popped, and I think it's been a huge game changer for us, and especially with customers coming in. We're targeting, some bigger customers, and they come in, they're wowed. They're like, oh my gosh. We always say our place sells itself.
Right.
So it was always the factory floor, and now it's in the office. So,
Andrew, I'm curious about how this legacy that your father has passed down in terms of the culture, in terms of this mindset. How are you taking the baton on that and driving it forward with ReFab and other things?
Yeah, so like we talked just prior, late 2020, right after COVID hit, we bought ReFab, who was a supplier of ours out on the lakeshore in Michigan. And I had grown up in the company, sweeping the shop floors, cleaning the toilets, taking out trash, and worked my way into shipping and receiving, into supply chain and purchasing of materials, and had ReFab as a supplier at the time. And when they expressed interest in selling, told my dad, said, yeah, if you buy ReFab, I'll go out and run it, right? So we were really looking for, as DeWys grew amongst the years and started servicing the Fortune 500, more of the contract manufacturing, we kind of lost that job shop feel as we started to serve the bigger customers. And ReFab was a perfect opportunity to, acquire that company and
recapture that
and recapture that, right? And really take, we had a lot of really good legacy customers that we wanted to continue to serve and offer them the competitive pricing and quicker lead times and good service. So I transitioned out of there, and it's already been over 5 years since I've been doing that. I think from a professional standpoint, it's helped me grow a lot, being in charge of that facility, the sales, the ops, and the finance, and then the HR and the culture and the people, right? We have people doing a lot of those things, but, overseeing the full gamut has really helped me grow and then prepare me for whatever I decide to do in the future down the road.
Y'all share similar systems, or is it kind of...
Yep, we have, back in 2021, DeWys Manufacturing transitioned to Global Shop. That was for the ERP system. 2 years later, ReFab, we actually didn't even have an ERP. It was a homegrown. It wasn't going to get us to where we needed to go. So we jumped on board the Global Shop, and then our stainless and aluminum DeWys Stainless Solutions that we moved out of DeWys, Maine a couple of years ago is on that as well. So it's really started to, we can adapt some of the same systems and processes, but still, kind of be unique facility to facility. So.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about what are some of the main services? What are some of the main processes that you offer your customers on the ReFab side?
Yeah. So similar to all our facilities, we cut our teeth. We have laser cutting, forming, welding, fastener insertion, PEM insertion. Those are some of the big ones. We do some machining, as well as some spot welding, and all our facilities. And we have DeWys Manufacturing has a paint line facility in-house out on the lakeshore. ReFab, we bought a powder coater 3 years ago now. So we have powder coating capabilities out there. So that's a nice value-added service.
For more capacity?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. As we were starting to grow, it was becoming difficult to, offer tight lead times without having that capability in-house and scheduling colors. And now we have the ability to paint what we want when we want.
So when you're talking about this, is primarily for ReFab.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. We have our own powder coat line. So we do that, and then we do some value-added assembly.
Okay.
So but really the core metal fab capabilities.
What's the difference between scale of projects in terms of job size between like ReFab and between
so
DeWys?
we're more of a lower volume, higher mix, but we certainly can do higher volume as well. We really at all our facilities we really target repeatability, right? We quote the product, we build the routers, We review prints before they go onto the shop floor. We make laser programs, stuff like that. So really, it's not so much volume, but we target that repeatability, right?
So kind of speaking to the need for a really good ERP system. To
Correct.
Run it all. I mean,
You put in a lot of effort up front to get that set up and build
Right.
your costing, and ideally you would like to, because then you go to run the part again, and it's just boom. You can put it right to as soon as you get a PO, you're going to be cutting it that afternoon or that evening.
Yeah. We
So
see customers graduate from ReFab and maybe move on to DeWys.
we haven't seen it yet, but we've actually pulled some smaller accounts from DeWys to ReFab.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
the other way.
Yep, we've done that. We haven't had any that have exceeded kind of our size and capabilities to then be passed along to DeWys. It's kind of been vice versa.
Right. Oh, wow.
We also sell a lot between each company too, and that's what I think really given us some extra capability is because we have a stainless steel division. That's we moved that out, like Andrew said, a few years ago. That's all dedicated to stainless, and customers love that because it's not mixed in with carbon steel.
Right.
And so there's about 30 employees there. We also have a 3PL warehouse there, so we do a lot of warehousing for customers. And so then we have obviously our DeWys main there, and so I think we have the ability to move products. If DeWys gets too busy, we flip it to these guys, or we can do big weldments. They can't. There's one customer that they'll flip work to us. So we have a lot of intra-company sales that we're selling and buying from each other for a singular customer. And so just from a workload leveling standpoint, it's been remarkable. And we do a lot. I mean, what percentage? I mean, a percentage of Andrew's business refabs is with DeWys and vice versa. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see that going on. That we didn't even think that would happen as much, but it is.
Oh, wow.
Have you found that to be a smooth process, back and forth?
Because we're on different, we're all in the same ERP but different company codes. We still have to treat them like just another customer. So we buy and sell. So that makes the process a little slower. But it's nice to have the bandwidth between all facilities. To hey, my laser's down. Call the other plant. Hey, do you have laser cutting capacity? And as long as they have material, they're off and running and cutting. Keep your shop going, or vice versa. Hey, I've got it. I can cut it and form it. I'm backed up in welding. Well, send the weld work, and we can start it this week. So the flexibility to have a lot of different equipment amongst all different facilities has been very beneficial. And not everyone has. Some of the facilities have equipment, others don't. So that we're constantly looking at CapEx. We're actually in the middle of a project right now of, all right, if where do we move equipment? Where do we buy equipment? What facility buys it? What, facility can take something, a piece of equipment from somewhere else, and really doing a deep dive to what makes sense, right?
Was there ever a thought of just expanding the footprint of the main facility to accommodate some of these new efforts?
Well, they always say, two reasons. I think we're somewhat where DeWys Manufacturing Maine is located. We're somewhat constrained by property. We're very rural. We're very, the nice thing in our community, we're like the biggest employer.
Oh, wow.
But city water and city sewer is not available. So like for all our powder coat water, but we have this major filtration going on with our water. And then that actually gets, parts of it get hauled away, and some of it can literally get kind of dumped. Through this a very rigorous titration process, filtration process.
Right.
So, but yeah, and so that works out really well, and so we got that going on, and I think another value of having this multi-company footprint is a shared service model. Andrew's probably going to laugh, but we try to not just on the fab stuff, but in terms of HR and insurance, healthcare insurance, you got all these different multi-locations. And so we've applied a shared service model. So not just on the factory stuff, but hey, you have new employees coming in, you're switching to a new healthcare insurance plan. Andrew doesn't have to learn or figure out all that HR insurance stuff.
Right.
He can go to the main and vice versa with our other divisions, even maintenance, even some continuous some continuous education projects, even some manufacturing. They're doing a key one right now that's huge. And the reason why I laugh is like, of course, there's a fee. Okay, so the more you use, the more ReFab uses DeWys services. There's a fee structure behind that, and I think it's just to, and at some point, I think Andrew will have to make a decision. Does he need to hire an HR person? If he does, boom, that'll come off from his, shared service always has these bad words, it's like, oh, you're going to charge and rip me off and all that stuff. But we have it amongst all the division. I think that just creates synergy, optimization of talent, so you don't have to hire an HR person at every location or try to hodgepodge it with one person does it all. I think that's been a huge advantage that I don't think we realized in the beginning as we started to expand our footprint across West Michigan. But that was our big limit. We couldn't expand in our Marne location where we're at now, so it kind of forced us to acquire and build outside and move.
Democratize it a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's also gotten to a size, I think, where we've noticed as we've started to, move different processes and companies out or acquire it, what we've noticed is as you get to a certain size, it becomes like you kind of want to stop, right? So you can still manage it effectively. We found some of these, as, some of our smaller companies that are, continuing to grow, there's a smaller group, not as many resources, but we can react a lot quicker. So, moving forward, we'll, grow those facilities as well as, do you look to just, buy another building down the road?
Right. I think there's something to say that in terms of, how do you keep the responsiveness and the flexibility as you scale? And it's a challenge. And I completely understand the thought process of like setting it up on its own, getting the benefit of redundancy maybe and assistance and shared resources. So it's it makes sense.
Well, there is that danger, right, of letting yourself grow too fast in a number of different ways, especially with number of employees, and all of a sudden, well, people don't have work and we got to do layoffs or something like that. I wanted to go back to what you're saying about CapEx for a moment, if I could. You were talking about trying to make decisions about, what to invest in next. What are some things recently that you've decided to invest in terms of machinery or capabilities that have given you kind of a new markets or new capabilities?
We're always looking at obviously the core processes. What's the latest and greatest in laser cutting. They're always come out with bigger lasers, automation, steel storage within that in that structure, press brakes. And then there's also robotic welding. The cobots are a big thing right now, and we've adapted those into a lot of different areas. Press brake forming, welding. We have cobot welders. We put them on machines, PEM insertion as well. So really just looking at leveraging the automation side of things and trying to do more with less, right? Like rather than just keep adding lasers, all right, we can buy a bigger one and get rid of two, right?
Yeah.
And then also looking at equipment that's, aging out, right? It's a risk to the business. If it goes down, then we got to rely on another facility to help us out, right? So a lot of it, probably over the next year or two is in our, core capabilities, laser cutting, forming, welding, stuff like that. So.
You're actually using a cobot on a hardware insertion machine.
Yes.
Wow. Well, at what level does it make sense to introduce a cobot into an activity like that? What type of job size?
Usually it's pushing the run quantities of probably 250, 500,000. It all depends on, some of these parts, it may only be 250 size lot run, but some of these parts have 40, 50 PEMs in them.
Wow.
So you're talking over the course of that run, it may take them, once you set it up, all day to run that lot size, just with how many we're putting in there.
No kidding. And there's been success programming those robots to do that activity. Wow. So it's just interesting because I've heard I've heard negativity, right? Some people are just don't feel it's worth the time to set up something like that, even though it may be a repetitive job down the road or something. That's interesting. Have you had other successes with the cobots outside of like the hardware insertion?
Yeah. So the just because of being a contract manufacturer, DeWys does a lot with robotics. I mean, they've got basically even parts picking on the lasers. I would say probably there's robotics on every single work center to some degree in that building. Minus we haven't just with our mix of powders we run. We haven't had really great success doing it on the powder coat side of things, but
Right.
everywhere in fab, there's some type of automation and robotics. At ReFab, we just have a cobot welder right now. That's been great. It's very quick. What we like about it is it's not as fast as some of like the Fanucs and stuff, but the setup time is very quickly.
Right.
It's very quick. You just grab it and kind of teach it where you want to go, set the welds, and it's off and running, right? You know, it's very minimal setup. You can set it up and run, and then, our team member that runs it, he's hand welding next to it.
Okay.
Right? So
he's a
kinda-
welder then.
Yep, he's a welder. So he's hand welding jobs while the robot's running. So it's
So he's-
nice to kind of keep them both going at the same time. you
Well, it's
know.
efficient. Yeah. Well, obviously he's got more knowledge than a newbie on what needs to be done to set it up and get that part going. One of the things that I'm always interested with growing businesses is how are you managing the whole labor situation in Western Michigan? How does that look for you in terms of finding people, training them, keeping them?
Yeah.
What's that like for you?
Well, good question. Our business has been kind of flat. I think a lot of fab shops, the business has been kind of flat. I think the tariffs slowed a lot of momentum down, even though we may not be super. It's not like we're importing product that we're paying the tariff, but a lot of our customers, are impacted. We're impacted, have been, continue, past, present, and future. And so that really slowed the momentum down in the economy. And companies just kind of pulled back on that. So growth was pretty minimal. So we weren't really hiring a lot of people. But now our business has picked up. Not, like every other fab shop, we know it's here, a lot of data center stuff, a lot of money in data center. We're a company of a diversification. For 50 years, I can say we've always remained diverse. I'm not one of these. I've heard a few companies that are all in on data centers, but what the rise and the fall is going to happen, and there's high reward, but there's high risk. And so being a family-owned business, privately owned, I'm not into this this risk here. And so we're managing our growth, but all our customers are picking up now, and so we are really engaged with local schools, universities. We do a lot with Grand Valley with interns. They were mentioned at the last session we had about using interns and stuff like that. We have a lot of engineering interns that we do, so we get a lot of higher end. On the shop floor side, it's been a challenge. I think our good claim to fame is our DeWys University that we launched in 2012. And it's funny, it's like we're going back in time, 15 years ago, 2012.
Wow.
Almost 15 years. Back
Working
to your
on it.
math again.
Yeah.
You're already thinking 2027. So.
Yeah, I'm already 50 years thinking. And so it's all about, we have designated trainers, we have curriculum, like welding, for example, we have training curriculum that goes from a level 1 to a level 5 welder. I'm just going to pick on welding, for example, and each level, there's a curriculum, there's so many hours, and then they also have to, it's not like, okay, I passed the test, you got to also prove it before you kind of get your certificate. And so that's really exciting to go up. We also partnered with, we're one of the very few manufacturers in Michigan that we have college credit. On the job, they can get up to 6 credits of welding on our facility. They do not have to go to the university. There's very few businesses that have that ability.
Wow.
Maybe your big ones
Right.
that you're like a Steelcase maybe, or some of your bigger companies have that. But in our space, we're one of the few companies that have college credit. So we have a lot of.
Is that through Ferris State or is that through?
It's through Grand Rapids Community College.
Okay.
Because they're like 20 minutes from us. And that's
Sure.
back from a recruiting standpoint. That's where we get a lot of people from that weld program, because they're like, we can adapt them. If they didn't come to our welding, we can adapt them into our program. And it's kind of a launch pad. And so that's been really effective and exciting. And we're just kind of kaizening that and looking at it again and saying, okay, with today's workforce, does that model still work? And so we're kind of rebuilding it again in terms of the new workforce of today.
It's
And
interesting
so,
you would say that, because it seemed like to me, based on what I know about the program, it'd be kind of what I would consider top level compared to a lot of other shops. What are
Oh,
some of
yeah.
the things you're looking at maybe tweaking to kind of better match up with today's youths?
One thing I heard is like, the silver workforce. One of our trainers, some of our trainers are dedicated. They're more experienced. It's like, okay, how can we download all his knowledge before he leaves us? But using some tools of today, using, have him talking, do you get him to talk into a microphone, film him,
Right.
using AI and all that stuff. And I think AI is kind of, I don't know, still kind of AI pie in the sky kind of thing, but I think, how can you take some of those small wins and download some of that information, not through just text or hands-on, but video and simulation and things like that on running a press brake or setting up a press brake, using some of the technology that's available today that wasn't available in 2012.
Right.
So really introducing some of the foundation is there, but, and what does the worker need today that wasn't available back then?
Do you have a dedicated like Kaizen team or continuous improvement person
Yes.
or people?
Yeah, we've had I think another claim to fame is innovation. We have an innovation team. Again, it's shared amongst all the divisions as well too. We have a director of innovation, and we've had that in place. And then he has the engineers work under there, our product engineers, as well as some of our continuous improvement people. And so innovation is huge. I think that, like Andrew was saying, the cobots, the workflow. We've done a huge continuous improvement event in paint line, and just significant. We've had so many. The improvements were so great that we used to have to run the paint line on the weekend.
Right.
We were able to eliminate it because it was harder to staff and stuff like that. Wow. So huge gains. Same thing with our lasers. We did another continuous improvement project there, and now I think we might have too many lasers. And lasers are faster and all that stuff too. And so, we've been really able to shift. The innovation stuff has just been amazing, and we're just always pushing that.
And do those continuous improvement efforts kind of pull people from the shop floor? Are they contributing as well?
Significant. Yeah, significant. And that's obviously, I think, if you didn't include them, there is some, like the parts picking Andrew mentioned, where the laser machine is picking parts. There used to be 20 people in their area shaking out parts.
No kidding.
But it's a mundane job.
Oh,
I mean,
denesting
who wants to
it,
shake
yeah.
parts from a metal sheet all day? Some people enjoy it, but there used to be 12 people on that 2 shifts, and now I think there's maybe 2 or 3. Everything's parts picking. So I think some of those folks also been elevated to say, okay, now we're going to teach you on a press brake.
Yeah.
No more parts shaking, but now let's upscale you and so that's been a big advantage too. So a lot of those people giving them a path up. So
Have you had success with the upskilling, taking them from maybe parts picking to being operators in front of a press brake? And I asked that because knowing that there was a concerted effort when we did the story in 2014 about consolidating on press brake technology. You wanted to make sure everybody could learn one thing, one software. So there's an effort there to make sure that you streamlined skills development. That where you didn't have, okay, you're going to specialize in this press brake because we have this one over here. It was well thought out and meaningful the way you approached it.
yeah, we still have that. We like to focus on, but some of these machine manufacturers, they kind of ebb and flow in terms of they're strong in one area, for a decade, and then they start slacking a little. So we're always looking at, we try to standardize on particular machines, particular brands, which I think is super, super helpful. But I think as you introduce more automation and the machines doing more, I think you don't need to be as dedicated. I think, and I'm learning from, it's all about service.
Right.
All this technology is great. And so a lot of us fab companies, the value of coming to an event like this is the manufacturer you're using or not using, how well are they doing for you?
Right.
And so we've been using this opportunity at this venue to hear about brands. I know the big brands don't like to hear us talking, but why do you like this brand over that brand? And if service comes up, that is the top, because you got all this great automation, and that one little thing shuts down, and there goes your whole cell.
You don't want to be talking to a chat bot at that point.
No,
right?
is not gonna work.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, that's been a big value there too, with the innovation and then merging technology and automation and just, like your question, what do you do? And again, it's all about streamlining and cobots and things like that. But we're still hiring people. I think we're looking for about 10 people right now.
No
So,
kidding.
yeah, so it's still need people to run machines, in our world,
So I think in your description early on of describing where, the family's kind of contributing to the overall organization in different ways, and that screams, that's probably a little too much, but it suggests to me that, there's different paths for people to take within these metal fabricating companies. You don't have to do the same thing for your entire life. In fact, more of your progressive shots probably compensate you, reward you, incentivize to learn more skills. And, what better way to expand a skill set than to be paid to do it and make yourself more valuable as an employee? Do you kind of share that sentiment? In particular, I think it's interesting because DeWys is 200 people. You got 40-person ReFab. It's given people pathways within an organization that was a lot smaller when we used to have these conversations, right? But yet the intent was there still to kind of like give these opportunities. You mentioned the welder, 5 different stages. And how has that worked out for the organization over the years in terms of having career paths and showing people that they have an opportunity to kind of do multiple things if the one thing they're doing currently maybe doesn't float their boat?
When new team members join our organization, there's a lot of people in an organization at all different levels that are like testaments of that, right? A lot of our executive leadership all started out working on the shop floor.
Cool.
They've been there. There's people in indirect office roles, sales, scheduling. They came in and they were one of the original 10 people, right? Yeah. Running turrets and shears. Back in the true sheet metal
Does
days.
Everyone have
right?
their fingers,
right? Everyone has their fingers, right?
That's it. That's good.
I do.
So it's cool to see that. We're always telling our group, we try to push those personal, professional, financial goals and let them know. I think as leaders, our best thing is like we always want to work ourselves out of a job, right? So trying to tell our group that there's a lot of different. You're just not stuck, right? We'll try to accommodate that as best we can, but it's just great to see wherever we have anywhere from people that I think some of them have been there. We just had recognition week at DeWys Manufacturing a couple weeks ago, and there's folks that have been there over 40 years.
Wow.
And we celebrate 50 next year. So it's really cool to see that, and they've held all different jobs throughout the years. So
that's
definitely as
senior
you grow.
Employees.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's a testament to the younger people coming in that, it was funny. It was just a coincidence that some of those senior people were sitting at the table, and they're not like 70 or 80. These are just kind of my age of people, but it was like the 300 club where I went around, we did all the math of how long have you been with a company, and it added up to be like 300 years. There was like, 7 or 8 of us,
Right.
and we're said, this is that opportunity again, just because you started here, all these people, some enjoy it. One guy is a truck driver. He was the shear operator. He was the shear god at one time, went to a driver, but he's content with what he's doing. And I think some people, you were talking earlier, sometimes some want to skill up and some just get comfortable at where they're at. And they are like the great laser operator or the press brake operator. You know what? Don't mess up a good thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people there's that mentality that, hey, I just want to come in, do a great job, and leave. And you got to honor that. And, and don't push them if they don't want to be pushed. But they're really good in their space. Right. So we try to honor that as well as encourage them to grow.
And I think like we talked a little bit earlier, I think on the flip side of that as well is like how are you getting their knowledge and skill set to that next generation, right? I think, openly admitting we haven't, found a great way to do that, right?
You're not alone.
Yeah, I was going to say you're good company there.
I think for myself, it's just, spending time with those individuals. And I've always grown up, asking questions and learning from a lot of those, like, well, how does this work and understanding? Because I'm always about if I can do it myself, I'd rather just do it versus asking someone. So I've learned a lot over the years of, can you show me how to do this? And then the next time I need to do it, I'll just do it myself, and I don't have to bother you. So it's been nice over the years, at least for myself personally, just working with all those individuals and, picking up on a lot of their skill set as well.
Yeah. So you've been very good also about including team members here at the FMA annual meeting. So what is the thought process behind that, and why do you keep coming to the FMA annual meeting?
I know last year Andrew came with our director of manufacturing, right?
Yep,
Eric?
from DeWys.
I haven't been here for 2 years, and so I've been a part of FMA a long time, and there's some. I think they took a picture of a group of us that were all like lifers of FMA, Todd and myself and Eric Borman and
Me.
and you, the next gen, the next. You got to throw in the next gen, and yeah, I think it's a testament. That's why I love coming here. It's like you catch up with people that you haven't seen for a while, and all of a sudden, boom, they're here, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like your conversation starts where you ended, even if it was 2 years ago, and even a conversation I had with a guy yesterday, it's like, I'm sharing a story of some stuff we're going through with our business, and I said, give me some advice. I didn't have to do all the intros and all that.
Right.
Boom, he gave me an instant answer. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's building those lasting relationships, legacies, and I can come back here every year and just continue where we left off, but yeah, getting different people. My president was in here, Mark Schonborn, he comes to these, and our COO, he'll come, and I don't know, it's just kind of a hodgepodge of different ones coming every year, but at least 2 people.
Yeah.
So
there's a little bit of ground to cover in terms of breakouts. And
well, and then what you learn, what you hear, so Andrew and I'll do a post deep dive after this conference and take away the top, not 30, but the top 3 things.
Gotcha.
There's always a laundry list of things.
So obviously there's some sessions to sit in on. Is there anything sticking out right now that maybe you've picked up on, either from a session or networking?
For me, every year it's always the networking. I mean, we try to do a dinner. We did a dinner with some of our our user groups. The things you can cover in a short amount of time is you gain so much, right? It's that's huge for me.
So those user groups for the listener are groups of fabricators that meet quarterly or
quarterly,
yeah, and kind of just like benchmark and just kind of learn from each other.
Yep. It just, I think a big thing is us for keeping the momentum going over the years. And, some people take on different roles in the organization. They leave organizations, and then you don't have a contact there. So trying to get a solid group of, at least probably 5 to 6 manufacturers, and then keeping that momentum of, hey, we're always looking out at least a quarter ahead of time, and, getting those tours and those best practices in. Because we've been in multiple over the years, and some of them lasted and gone a good stretch, and some of them have kind of petered out very quickly.
Right.
And then it's also, if you got a group of 6 and you're hitting a place every quarter, after 2-3 years, you've been at everyone's place 2 or 3 times. Hey, how can we mix it up, right? I think they could use some more structure on how those are put in place, and, trying to get the most out of them. So,
as a younger leader, how would you advise people to take full advantage of an organization such as FMA?
I think really, if you're going to do it, you got to be very fully committed. I think they offer a lot of resources, and like these annual meetings and the user groups are very helpful. But it's all about what you put into it, right? For me, I'm going to set aside the time to use it. I'm not going to let something else get in the way of something came up. I've got I can't make it, right. I think it's, if you decide to do it, I'll preach that it's a great organization, but you got to utilize it.
Right. I think that's good advice for a lot of activities in a shop, right? The continuous improvement comes back to me in the sense that, I've got a brother that works in a paper mill, and they pull him aside to do this other stuff, and meanwhile, no one's covering for him. He's still got to go back and do his other job. Mm-hmm. Let's just say he's not a supporter of positive change, but in a way, you've got to create the environment that people.
Yeah, it's all about the
Yeah. So it's important to kind of not only commit to it, but create the position so they can get away and actually focus on the extra. I don't call it extracurricular, but the additional
improvement.
Yeah. So 5 years, you're looking out for DeWys. What do you see as the big challenges for the company?
I think our biggest challenge is succession. You know, there's a lot of shops I talk to, a lot of gray hair folks like myself, all asking that same question. I think succession is going to be huge in the next 5 years. And what does that look like? We want to remain family owned. I think private equity it's there. It's an opportunity, but I think it does, hate to say it, I think it does a disservice to manufacturing because I think it destroys some of the fabric and some of the culture. And I've heard the stories so many times, it's just scary. And so I know some of them are here and some of them are represented in the Fab 40. And, I think it's all about succession in our business and next generation. You know,
Right.
do I remain as a professionally led family organization, or as Andrew moves up and gets his, constantly developing, will he be that next generation of leader, or does, and I belong to some family business groups too, and you never want to put somebody in a position that they don't want to, but they might be the greatest. I mean, Andrew's business, ReFab, is probably the highest performing. It is the highest performing business within our circle of companies, in terms of throughput, profitability, top line. I mean, they're knocking out of the park. And I'm like, I wish I had like 10 other shops like him.
So, DeWys has been an annual member of our Fab 40, which is actually a ranking of the largest metal fabricating companies according to revenue. And times have changed, and you're bringing up some pretty good points, and kind of related to private equity. I don't know if you want to kind of go over that, John, in terms of how you would like to see maybe our Fab 40 list.
Yeah. I
change.
think Fab 40. I think it's like evolution of time. I mean, you always have to look at that list, and we used to be pretty proud of ourselves. We were in the top. I don't know, at one time top. Again, it was starting to come out too, so there weren't maybe a lot of entrances, people applying for it. But I think more and people. I think it's been a brand building event too. We've actually got customers because they saw us on Fab 40. I mean, they may not even subscribe. Oh, you're part of Fab 40. I'm like, yeah. So there's been some advertising positive, but I think as some of the more entrants, but also I think private equity has some of these companies. That's probably our biggest complaint with the Fab 40. If there's a way to, number one, private equity is getting sucked up to the top, and so people are getting pushed down more. And I think it's important to recognize those people and maybe split it between privately owned and private equity owned, or something like that, just to differentiate it, or even note it in the column, because we like to say, we're in the Fab 40, but we look at our category, we're probably in the top 5.
Right.
But you have to sift through the data. We're not a plate manufacturer. Plate's always high sales. It's easy to do plate than sheet metal. You need a lot more people to move sheet than thick plate. And so companies that do stamping. I think there's a few stampers in there. Stamping, same thing, high revenue. And so maybe some subset categories. In terms of the type of business, family or private equity owned, and I don't know, just maybe some different categorization. So then I can go and say, hey, we're in the top 5.
Right.
In the Fab 40 in this category, so maybe a better definition.
Well, thanks so much for joining us today. It's interesting learning about where DeWys is now, and thanks for being members of FMA all these years.
Good, thank you.
If you have any complaints, criticisms, or pleasantries to share with us, please send them to podcast@fmamfg.org. And thanks for tuning in, and be sure and tune in again. See ya.
The Fabricator Podcast is a production of the Fabricators and Manufacturers Association. The show is hosted by Dan Davis and Lincoln Bruner. The podcast is produced by Gareth Slager, recorded by Griffin Hammond, and edited by Dana Weicker. Additional support provided by Andy Flando, Elizabeth Gavin, Sarah Spring, Amy Hudson, Mike Owens, Billy Kolpa, and Pat Simon. If you like this podcast, check out the FMA Podcast Network. Thank you for listening.
Once again, the Fabricator Podcast delivering the most cutting-edge conversation.